Hello everybody and welcome back to the underwater extravaganza. We should probably start by opening up our Moonlord treasure bag, from which we get our 7th accessory slot from the Celestial Onion, and a whole bunch of nothing. Wait no, there's Luminite too, okay. I craft my Luminite into bars and waste all of them on a solar pickaxe. You're probably wondering why? Allow me to show you. Nearly 1,000 Luminite ore later, we craft ourselves the Vortex armor, as we were going to be sticking to Ranger. I then make the Deadshot Bridge to fill in my empty accessory slot, for now at least. Using all the Luminite we have, I upgrade my Rocket Freeze into mini nukes. Trust me, things are going to get interesting soon enough, once we get the ball rolling with these post-Moonlord upgrades. Anyways, I went to challenge the Moonlord again, so I wanted to get my hands on an SDMG. I mean, it kind of fits the theme in this playthrough. Our new Vortex armor should make obtaining this thing pretty easy. So, setting aside the goal of the SDMG, I wanted to craft a different weapon to bridge the gap between us and the Moonlord, even though we've already taken down the Moonlord. The Planetary Annihilation being the bow I had my eyes set on, an upgrade to the Vernal Bolter. Now, I'm not really a bow kind of guy, but converts wooden arrows into homing energy bolts? Can't really go wrong with that now, can we? And good lord, this thing is like an RGB beefed up Daedalus Stormbow. Is this what love feels like? I'm honestly so grateful we took a chance on this weapon now. I have a feeling this thing's gonna be our friend for many bosses to come. I resummoned in the Moonlord and yeah, he didn't stand a single chance. We opened our treasure bag and no SDMG. That's fine, we'll just open another. Still, no SDMG. But I'll take that Celebration Mark 2 though. Okay, maybe I'm just having bad luck. No, he drops like 7 items each death, and not a single one of them is the SDMG. You can probably guess what we didn't get from the treasure bag. I was fed up of fighting Moonlord at this point, so I went to a totally not modded NPC and bought some treasure bags. Okay, second one, third one, fourth, fifth. Oh, okay, fifth. That was nearly 10 treasure bags to obtain one weapon. What are the chances? Yeah, anyways, we needed to obtain some unholy essence, so I went to the underworld, put on the lava shark mount, and went to work. I'd hide under lava for the most part, wait for an enemy to come out, and then dive back out and grab the loot. Took about 10 minutes to get everything we needed, but things weren't too bad. I made a full stack of holy fire bullets, as the wiki said they were pretty decent. Then of course I made the profane shard. Now it is finally time for us to move on to the first boss, the chicken balls. My first instinct was to use the Celebration Mark II as the huge blast radius could hit everything, but the range was pretty abysmal, so I switched to the SDMG. The Space Dolphin machine gun was dealing very consistent damage, but it was just too hard to aim. So the all too powerful Planetary Annihilation ended up being my main choice of weapon here. In terms of the actual fight, we weren't doing all too bad. Most of the projectiles were surprisingly slowed down by the water, and the Planetary Annihilation was doing solid, consistent, easy damage. The lingering projectiles the Guardians left behind were somewhat painful to dodge, but it wasn't too bad. Now with the Guardian Defender, okay, that was a cheap hit, come on. We move on to the final phase of the fight. In this final phase, the projectiles weren't slowed down by the water, but all in all, it's a pretty easy phase. There were some attacks that were slightly awkward to dodge, but I pop adrenaline and completely melt the final chicken ball. Not a bad first boss. We were cutting it kind of close in the final phase, I'll admit, but it was fairly easy. So now we've defeated the Guardians, the natural next step we can take is to defeat Providence. Now, surely Providence can't be that bad. I mean, I beat her in Infernum the other day. After some brief testing, I found the Planetary Annihilation to still be the best weapon against her. And now, this is the attack I was kind of scared of going into this fight, as we had essentially no precision with our movement, so we had to pray we didn't get hit. Well, we didn't die, but we took quite a few holy stars to the face. This could end pretty badly. Luckily though, on the contrary, her alternate attack was very easy. But it's just this one that's complete nightmare fuel in a flooded world like ours. We managed to stay in a good position for this cycle though, so we ended up not even getting hit. And in case you're wondering, the laser attack is still absolute piss. Never fight her in the underworld. Actually, now that I mention that, we're probably not going to be able to fight her in the underworld. Like, we could use the lava shark of course, but we're going to have to basically face tank her. Okay, here comes the harder variant of this attack. I made sure to stay as far away as possible for this one. I stayed in a relatively good position and ended up coming out unscathed, dodging one of the attacks. Now we've got her to her Guardians phase, which doesn't really do much, except heal her. So I just went on autopilot and let the Planetary Annihilation do its thing. Her Guardians would eventually fall, and now it was a sprint to the finish for both of us. I take her down to a measly 60,000 health using adrenaline. We had this fight in the bag, although she casted the literal Great Wall of China of these fireballs and I was about to die. This is the worst possible attack she could have done. If I get hit once, I'm dead. Luckily my heal came off cooldown, so that became the perfect safety net for me. And with her final barrage of holy stars over, I claim victory. Not bad for a first attempt, I'll say that. I open the treasure bag and get no ranged weapons. But the divine geodes are pretty useful, so I'll keep them. There were some pretty interesting weapons we could make with these. But if you know me, you'll know that we never upgrade our gear properly. I live by the phrase all balls, no brain. Stormweaver can't be too bad, right? Like the first phase, pretty much just circle him and you're golden. I led him a bit closer to the surface and then began the circling strategy. The laser beam can catch you sometimes, but as long as you're doing the right movements, you should be mostly fine. For example, I went too far inwards here and got hit. And the exact same thing happened here when I tried to dash towards him. We moved though, I tried again. However, I made the exact same mistake again. I decided at this point maybe the Fishron wings would help out here, so I thought we'd re-challenge him. There's no way we can't beat him the way we are now. Big shout out to the Vortex Armor's stealth ability. This was dealing insane damage to the Duke, although I'd have to disable it for the third phase as we would be dashing a lot. I think it's needless to say here, this boss was a piece of cake. Of course we don't get the wings, but you know what they say. If at first you don't succeed, buy some treasure bags from a modded NPC. And yeah, I nearly just sold the Fishron wings. Okay, now we have those, surely this fight will be a breeze, except our lack of full speed. Yikes. Maybe we should go back to the fin wings. So I switched back to them, and this time I really focused on how his attack patterns work. I noticed that if you go inside of his little circle here, then you are basically guaranteed a hit. So I tried to stay away from doing that. Okay, now we're talking, we've made it to the second phase. This part of the fight is nothing too special, you just have to dash away from him whenever you hear the lightning sound. And definitely dash away from him, not towards him. Anyways, the Celebration Mark II was making very short work of this worm, until I took a stupid headshot and died. I think at this point I'd essentially perfected my strategy for the first phase. All you have to do is follow his tail as closely as possible and stay on the outside of his circle, never on the inside. Now we'd reached the second phase again, I made sure this time not to take any stupid headshots. We made it to the final phase where he summons tornado walls and coils around you, but still the worm was no match for us. We open up our treasure bag and obtain the Storm, another Daedalus Stormbow archetype of weapon, but by no means am I complaining here. This was, however, not the weapon I was looking for, so I re-challenged the Stormweaver. Okay, Storm Dragoon. Shit. Here we go again. 1, you're kidding me, that's a 10% drop. 2, oh okay, 2. Alright, so this is the Storm Dragoon I was after, kind of like a beefed up Clockwork Assault Rifle. I reforged it to Unreal, and then we moved on with the next logical step in progression. Poltergeist. Or Ceaseless Void, let's find out. Yep, I'm not doing progression skips this time, unless I feel like it. So my first instinct here was to completely obliterate the dark energies with the Celebration Mark II, which I'll admit there certainly were better options I could have chosen, but it was what I had, so it was what I used. I used the Planetary Annihilation in this phase so I could focus more on dodging, as this phase right here is the bane of my existence. Anyways, we managed to claw our way through it, so it was looking like there was light at the end of the tunnel. Although that facade quickly wore off as I realized how outclassed I really was. Yep, I lied through my shig. I'm going back on that promise to not do progression skips. Poltergeist, here I come. I can wholeheartedly promise you guys the next challenge I do is not gonna be easy. A good old Poltergeist, you know, if you just can't quite get past Providence, you do Poltergeist instead, get some overpowered gear and completely shred everything pre-Devourer of Gods. I'll admit here we definitely were in need of a weapon and armor and accessory upgrade, but although our damage was low, the situation was stable. The Planetary Annihilation just really is such a versatile weapon. Anyways, this fight really hasn't been anything special so far. The projectiles were slightly harder to dodge, seeing as we had less precision in our movements and less agility, but all in all, it was nothing too bad. With Polter's clone taken down, it's now just a sprint to the end of the fight, and I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. Time to get some loot, except I left the Zerg potion on, so I'm getting completely pummeled by these dungeon enemies. Anyways, I return to the comfort of my own home to open this treasure bag. I get the ranged weapon, but more importantly, Ruinous Souls. Now, let's return to a previous point in progression here. We still had Underworld Providence and Cygnus to take down, so I gave Cygnus a shot on my little lava shark. Yeah, I think that went about as well as I'd expected. Seeing as how catastrophically terrible that fight went, I don't think we have any chance against Underworld Providence, which means we're going to be stuck with the Asgard's Valor for the rest of the game. Luckily though, Cygnus isn't actually required because Calamity loves progression skips. There's actually a second recipe for the Cosmic Worm which just requires a butt ton of Luminite and Necroplasm. So I thought we'd test the waters here and give the Devourer of Gods a quick go. After all, what could possibly go wrong? Since we were pretty much permanently airborne, this guy was locked and loaded onto us like a Infernum Devourer of Gods. Ah yes, death from stepping on a Lego brick. Okay, we needed some better gear, so I decided to summon in the boss again. What am I doing? What am I actually thinking when I record this game? It's always just blitz through every single boss at once, like take your time. I have to give credit where credit's due though, the Storm Dragoon was better than the Daemon's Flame against this boss. But if you're watching this video for advice about this game, please do not follow in my footsteps. Do what I say, not what I do. Because this is not a viable weapon in the slightest. Okay, I finally caved and decided we can upgrade our gear. In terms of armor, I was probably gonna go for Blood Flare, but one weapon in particular caught my mind. The Monsoon, a post-Poltergeist upgrade to the Tsunami, which I remember being exceptionally good for the Devourer of Gods. To get it though, we were going to need to extract a couple of teeth from a Reaver Shark, which in this playthrough is just your average Tuesday. We were being surrounded by some very frightening creatures, but we were just as nimble in the water as they were. So we ended up getting what we needed with relative ease. However, I wasn't done just yet. You see, I just remembered the existence of something that could change our fate entirely. Something I hadn't used since my last no-hit run, about a year ago. If you haven't guessed already, the Omega Blue armor is what we were after. A pretty niche armor set, used mainly for no-hits, but this could just be what we're looking for in this run. Right off the bat, it gives a pretty huge upgrade to every class's damage, meaning that we could dabble into other classes, not just ranged. You may have also noticed these tentacle Kagane looking things protruding from the back of our Terrarian. The catch of this armor set is that you no longer have any natural life regen, but get close enough to an enemy and these tentacles will latch on, deal damage and steal life, which in my humble opinion I think would synergize pretty well with this boss, considering we're going to be ramming through him a lot. Doesn't change the fact that I'm bad at the game. Screw it, we try again. Doesn't matter if you fall down 99 times, if you pick yourself up 100 times, you still haven't lost. I did eventually get into a rhythm with this fight, but I found that our dash just wasn't long enough. We were going to need the Elysian Aegis. Perhaps not right this second at least, but I know Yaren's going to be pretty tough without it. Oh, and surprise surprise, we got Dog to his second phase. I've been using the Valediction at this point, as it is a very consistent weapon against the dog. I'd kind of adopted a strategy for this fight much like Infernum Dog. You just do the good old sine wave pattern with him, ram dash through his head and die. Easy as that. The first phase was essentially the same too, except he's slightly slower and much less aggressive. Still though, things just weren't working out for us. I finally decided to take my accessory loadout into account. At this point, I still hadn't made the Abyssal Diving Suit, so that was the first on my list of priorities. I then replaced the Celestial Shell of the Angel Treads, still not the most optimized accessory loadout, but it's better than what we had before. The Abyssal Diving Suit allows us to fall much faster in liquids, which is an absolute godsend in this playthrough. But there were still some things we could do to our loadout. After a couple more failures, I purged everything from my accessories except the absolute bare essentials. The Abyssal Diving Suit already maxes out our water mobility, so we don't need any other accessories for that. Also meaning that we no longer need the fin wings, so we can use the highest tier of wings available. And finally, to make up for our subpar dash, I throw on the Leviathan Ambergris and begin the fight. The Ambergris heavily increases our dash velocity and also decreases the cooldown, making our Asgard's Valor on par with the Elysian Aegis. Also, now that we have Elysian wings equipped, our flight time, speed, and most importantly of all, agility are heavily increased too. This doesn't help us take out Dog, I don't know what will. I was going to make the Monsoon when I made the Omega Blue armor, but I ran out of Reaper Teeth. Don't get me wrong, the Valediction's a great substitute, but you honestly haven't seen the Monsoon on this boss. Also, the Omega Blue set bonus is overpowered. Now with enough Reaper Teeth, I craft a Monsoon and get back to fighting this boss. The great thing about this weapon is that wooden arrows are actually the best with it. Also, look at that DPS. With some careful evasion this time, I managed to get all the way up to the second phase. Let's hope things go well. I might just delete my channel. The Devourer is much more aggressive and agile in his second phase, meaning you have to be very careful not to make him coil around you. And I forgot to use my mount. I don't think you guys understand how awkward and floaty movement is underwater. This time I remember to hop on the lava shock when I see the telegraphs, and we dodged the lasers flawlessly. We were rapidly approaching the end of the fight. My palms were getting sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. But will I be able to dodge this seemingly easy attack? Of course not. Back to square one again, but not entirely. With every single attempt we do and fail, we obtain skill. The Devourer of Gods will stay the same old cosmic worm forever, but we are ever changing, always enhancing our skill, optimizing our loadout, changing up our strategies. That right there is the difference between us, the Terrarian, and this stupid worm. There's no way I'm losing to this guy now, that would just be embarrassing. We get past what is hopefully the final laser section, and with the power of Sharknadoes, we end the cosmic worm's reign of terror. Oh, okay. I have to say that was probably the most challenging fight yet. We open our treasure bag and get the Staff of the Mech Worm, a very nice summoning weapon, Cosmolite bars, and the Nebulous Core. Now we were really making some progress. We needed some Galactica singularities for upcoming recipes, so I finally decided to fight Astrum Deus. He was easy. Now it's time for the ever so fun post-Devourer upgrade spree. Now that we've crafted our Cosmic Anvil, we can make pretty much every recipe imaginable. The first one I make being the Cleansing Blaze, a flamethrower that needs no explanation. I fought King Slime about 20 times to get some gel, and now allow me to show you why I made this weapon. While I completely obliterate the Pumpkin Moon for some Nightmare Fuel, let's discuss upgrades. The Godslayer armor would be nice and all, but for the time being I'm considering staying with Omega Blue. I don't particularly struggle with Yaren too much, and I feel like this armor set could synergize very well, especially as we'll be ramming into him tons of times. If we do get hit, the lifesteal from the set bonus should be enough to sustain us. Also, watch me trash my Nightmare Fuel. I didn't find out till 20 minutes later. Okay, I didn't really want to go through the rest of the event, so I decided we'd test the waters with Yaren. Is my loadout optimal? Nah. Do I care? Not one bit. It was pretty likely we weren't going to be able to get the Asgardian Aegis, so the Asgard's Valor is the only ram dash we have. Which I can make do with, I'm not complaining, but it's not exactly optimal, is it? We somehow managed to get Yaren to his second sub phase, which is surprising, but I forget to dash here and the fight ends early. Okay, that was a very promising first attempt. I made the Executioner's Blade as I know that weapon is good for Yaren. Then we go for another attempt. Okay, let's forget about that 1000 IQ play. We've nearly made it to the second phase. Okay, this is kind of scary. I didn't think we'd get this far. The dash windows are going to be pretty tight with the Asgard's Valor, I'll say that for sure. And I can't say I'm excited for the huge fireball circles either. We put up a good fight, but we just weren't ready yet. Back to the moon events it is then, and also this is when I found out I trashed my Nightmare Fuel. I redo the Pumpkin Moon, then move on to the Frost Moon for endothermic energy. These Ice Queens were pretty annoying. Next up we have the Solar Eclipse for Dark Sun Fragments. Luckily we don't need as many of these. Now with those 3 events done, we can finally make some Ascendant Spirit Essence, allowing us to make some of the best armor sets and accessories in the entire mod. I craft the silver wings, but keep the Elysian wings on vanity because they look so much cooler. As for our dash, I mine out a decent chunk of terrain in the underworld to see if we can fight Cygnus and Providence. I'm really hoping this works, because I really don't fancy using the Asgard's Valor on the Exo mechs. Luckily, we somehow managed to just about crawl through Cygnus while being completely blind, which gives us a spark of hope for Providence. Okay, well I guess we're sticking with the Asgard's Valor after all. How about we experiment with some accessories? I tried replacing the Asgard's Valor with the Status Void Sash and using the Blazing Core in case Yaren rams into us. The Void Sash being the final upgrade to the Master Ninja Gear, which unfortunately can't ram through enemies, and the Blazing Core allowing you to parry enemies, completely nullifying their damage, with a cooldown of course, and releasing a ton of stars when you do. While this did seem like the perfect solution on paper, it ended up being more awkward than practical. I guess the Asgard's Valor really is our best option. While the Executioner's Blade was a half decent option against Yaren, there was something better that I've been waiting to get. One of the drops from the Devourer to be more precise. You may be internally screaming right now asking, why don't you just buy the treasure bag? I think that's a bit too cheesy. If we don't get the thing this time, then I guess I will. But I was looking for a challenge, and the Devourer was willing to offer. I even made a new weapon just for this fight, the Pack, a direct upgrade to the Scorpio, so this thing has to be good. Okay, finally, that took long enough. Sadly, we don't get it on this attempt, so I just buy the treasure bags. And there we go, the Eradicator. I also replaced the Leviathan Ambergris with the Dark Sun Ring. Okay, let me tell you about the Eradicator. This thing is so stupidly overpowered, it can carry you through the rest of the game. In fact, no, it literally does in one of my upcoming challenges. This weapon throws out discs that fire homing lasers with incredible range, so this thing could be easier to use. Also, I forgot to mention we're fighting Yaren in the Sulphurous Sea because of the increased visibility. I have to say, the extra minions from the Dark Sun Ring and this weapon are completely carrying us through the fight. Like, we went through that entire sub-phase before he could even complete the first cycle. Also, Clutch of the Century right here. Now we're really getting into the scary portion of the fight where Yaren summons these huge circles of fireballs. And whatever this attack is, shouldn't have went above it, but yeah. Plus, he also teleports like Phase 3 Duke Fishron. I got into a kind of bad spot here. I was hoping I could get out of the situation, but I perished. I'm not a scientist when it comes to Yaren's fireball circles, but he likes to alternate between fast and dense ones. The fast ones are fairly easily dodged by staying close to them, but the dense ones, just run and pray. Also, hold on, we're about to beat Yaren. When did this happen? And we're on full health? Okay, alright. This is why I said the Eradicator is overpowered. So, we open the treasure bag and get the goods, the best wings in the entire game and Yaren's soul fragments. We are now officially in the final portion of the game with just 2 bosses left. Oh, and since we're post Yaren now, I can pick up the Lesbians of Finality. Anyways, I had a plan of how we could take down Underworld Providence somewhat legitimately. Looking back now, I could have just done Nighttime Providence, but I don't think that would have been any easier. In the first part of the series, I used the Lava Shark to take down the Wall of Flesh. My logic was that if we're riding the Lava Shark, then we can breathe lava. Going even further, let's assume our Terrarian can hold their breath, just as long as a normal human can. This means that we can jump out the water for just a few seconds at a time to dodge these holy stars. And with the power of mental gymnastics and tentacles, we take down Underworld Providence. We can finally upgrade our dash for the first time since Plant Era. With my first dash upgrade in what seemed like a century, I mined some Ore as there was a weapon I had my eyes set on. The ace is high, however it requires a revolver in its recipe. I wish I was lying when I said it took over 10 minutes to get this thing, with a mod that speeds up time while you're sleeping, and also the recipe from Fargo's Mutant mod. No wonder I never see people using this thing. Anyways, the actual concept of this weapon is really cool, I think. Shooting out playing cards with each variant having a different effect. And so, with basically no upgrades, we summon in Supreme Calamitas. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea. But let's be real though, Supreme Calamitas shouldn't be too hard. As always, the first bullet hell is trivial, but the floatiness of the water does trip me up. For the Brimstone Hearts, I know I could have used something like the Chicken Cannon, but the Eradicator was the best thing I had. With the hearts taken care of though, we now get to test out the Aces High. I'll say immediately, the damage on this thing is very good, although the velocity is kind of slow because of the water. Escal does definitely seem doable, but we haven't tried the Exomex yet. And of course, throughout this entire playthrough, I haven't made a single piece of the Codebreaker. I was smart enough to place down some Power Cell factories though, so at least give me some credit where credit's due. Anyways, Planetoid schematic, Jungle schematic, Underworld schematic, Snow schematic, and we're done. Drayden joins our hot tub stream, and who do we pick first? It's always going to be Ares. Now from what my eyes are picking up so far, nothing seems too exceptionally different in this fight. The Eradicator is doing very flawless damage. Soon enough, we make it to the second phase with Thanos and the twins. Just like always, their greatest weakness is diagonal movement. Then Ares joins the party again, with us now facing all 3 Exos at once, which on paper sounds like the hardest phase, but is actually in practicality the very easiest. Seriously, from my recent Infernum playthrough, the Exos were one of the bosses that really were made so much better. Okay, it's 4 AM, everyone else has left, but Ares just hasn't picked up the hint. I'll admit now the floatiness of the water really is making things awkward, and oh no, yeah, we've screwed ourselves over here. I'm on basically no health, I moved to the right when I should have moved to the left, and we succumb to our fate. I'll admit that exceeded my expectations for the first attempt, so I jumped right back into the fight. Seriously, in my next challenge, the Eradicator is gonna save us. With some well-timed adrenaline, I nuke away most of this dude's health. I find myself in a better position for his signature attack. Will we be able to survive this? Well, I know Ares certainly won't. Now with the first and arguably hardest of the 3 mechs defeated, we move on to Thanatos, who is the sole reason why I wanted the Asgardian Aegis so badly. If you showed this to a Terraria player in 2011, I think they would explode. Also, we got Adrenaline baby, let's go! Once you get either of these mechs to a certain health threshold, you'll be left alone with the one with the lowest health, this time being Thanatos. Nothing new here except he spams a ton of lasers and has a new signature attack. Kind of hard to dodge with how floaty we are, but you just have to dash to the side and let him coil around you. Soon enough he'll take a chill pill and then you can just dash through him and run away. Thanatos? More like Thanatoast. Shit. Do you ever just feel like giving up on everything in life? It's what the evil version of me would say, but I'm gonna keep going and going and going and going until we kill this guy. First of all, we'd been needing to upgrade our armor for a while, so I went for the Ranger Auric Tesla set. I also made the Elemental Quiver to make up for the Ace's High's poor velocity. I'd already crafted the Tarragon, Bloodflare and Godslayer set, so all I had to do now was mine some Auric Ore. And now we can finally put on the ultimate armor set, the culmination of all the previous armors I made not 5 minutes ago. Anyways, let's get back to the Exos, shall we? The Ace's High was doing excellent damage to the Exos alongside the Lesbians and the Staff of the Mechworm. I did the same strategy of holding Adrenaline till we have arrows on his own and completely nuked him. I'll be honest, the progress we were making in this fight was spectacular. This time I did the twins first instead of Thanatos as I found them harder. Still though, we just weren't getting very far with them. I crafted the sponge and replaced the nebulous core with it. Honestly, I just love the sponge. It does make us a heck of a lot tankier, but doesn't change the fact that I'm bad at dodging. This time I locked in and we made it all the way to Thanos, then the twins. I'm really hoping the sponge can help us tank through this phase of the fight. But alas, Artemis and Apollo are an impenetrable wall that we cannot find a way to get past. I felt so defeated I even tried Escal again. The bullet hells are actually a pretty nice break from the Exos. Although once again the floatiness really wasn't doing us any favours here. To my surprise though, we'd actually made it to the 3rd bullet hell, but that was as far as we were gonna make it. We still hadn't obtained the chicken cannon, so I fought Yaren once again. Please never leave me, operator. There was actually a little idea I'd cooked up while dying to the Exos. A little something involving a pre-Moonlord accessory. You see, the thing with the Neptune's shell, and of course its upgrades, it doesn't enhance your water mobility, but in fact fundamentally changes it. While your horizontal speed is heavily decreased, your vertical agility is comparable to that of being on land, which for the Exos would be very counterintuitive. It works perfectly for Escal, especially for the Brothers phase where all you have to do is slowly move up and down. To my surprise, this was working very well. This is the furthest we'd made it into the fight so far. Don't even ask how I got hit here. It was genuinely looking like we were gonna win. Although 2 stupid hits changed that. Desperately clinging onto hope and hunting for a solution other than getting good at the game, I tried the Exos once again. While I wasn't using the Celestial Shell right now, I knew that there would be one point in this fight where it would come in very useful. I'll tell you one thing, it's certainly not Ares, and most definitely not Thanatos either. We were going to use the Celestial Shell on the twins. The idea here is that your slow diagonal movement will allow you to dodge most of their projectiles except when you run directly into them. But assuming that you don't do that, I think we've discovered the perfect method. While it is kinda cheesy, for the laser I just used a Rod of Discord. This method was so much better than just using wings, but we still weren't good enough. I stuck with it though, and found a good rhythm with this section of the fight. You just have to make sure to always face away from the orange dude. And just like that, we've taken out Artemis and Apollo. Now all we have to do is get through the rest of the fight. Yes, that was me ending the recording. I called it quits for the day, got some rest, and tried again with a fresh head the following day. It was at this point I finally decided we needed to go all out to defeat this boss. With no other way to make the boss easier for me, I just had to make me harder for the boss. I replaced my Aquatic Heart with the Rampart of Deities, replaced my Dark Sun Ring with the Chalice of the Blood God, and only after reforging all of my accessories to warding and using the Resilient Candle, do I begin the fight once more. And hopefully for the final time. Nah, I'm just kidding, bro. We had finally perfected our strategy in this fight, holding Adrenaline for Ares, taking him down first, then Thanatos, then the twins. I have to say, I'm genuinely surprised at the difficulty of that fight. Literally everything was smooth sailing until we hit Devourer of Gods. Anyways, I opened my treasure bag and obtained the beloved Draiden's Heart, along with some exoprisms and a new ranged weapon, the Surge Driver. It's not that good. Anyways, now we've defeated the exomechs, there is only one path left for us to go down. Our final rite of passage, if you will, where we take what we've learnt from the exomechs and every boss prior, and demonstrate it to our utmost capability in one final challenge. Will this be a walk in the park for us, or will it be a true test of our skill? Because I seriously can't imagine anything harder than the exos. Catastrophe and Cataclysm. These two names will strike fear in any Calamity player, young or old, new or experienced. I was on the edge of dying here, but luckily the Draiden's Heart we got from the exos completely saved us. Anyways, I think this flooded world actually makes the two brothers easier, as moving slowly up and down will pretty much dodge all of their attacks. And now we move back onto Escal. I was feeling pretty spent from taking down the exos, but it's nothing too serious. For this point in the fight, I put my wings back on as we were going to need to be pretty fast to dodge the huge meatball. And by huge meatball, I mean this guy in the center. We don't talk about it, okay? We don't talk. I spent a bit of time off camera warming up for this fight and testing out a few weapons that we could possibly use. And the one I found to be the most effective, by far, is the Tyranny's End, the Calamity Mod's ultimate sniper rifle. Okay, real quick, I am aware that musket balls are better on this weapon, but I forgot to buy some, so I used Godslayer slugs instead. Out of all the weapons I tested, including the exo tier weapons, I found this one to have the most DPS by a long shot. The only catch being is that it takes skill to aim, which, not to toot my own shig, but I think I've built up quite a decent amount in the past playthroughs I've been doing. For the brothers, I used the chicken cannon instead so I can focus more on dodging and less on aiming. And now, we've clawed ourselves all the way back to where we were previously. I'm not gonna dash into you this time, meatball. Anyways, for my first attempt with this weapon, things were going exceptionally well. There's absolutely no way I can let myself fail here. The final bullet hell has now arrived. Let's hope I've gotten used to the floatiness of the water by now. Nearly flawless. Escal throws out literally every single possible attack to try and stop us, but it's too late. Things just aren't going to go well for you when you're challenging the literal King of the Seas in their own domain, especially if the King of the Seas is armed with a sniper rifle. And there we go, the Supreme Witch Calamitas finally gives up and accepts her fate. Seriously, this weapon is OP though. As the box arena crumbles to ashes and our treasure bag slowly sinks to the ground, we can finally say we beat the game of our entire world being underwater. But I'm not done just yet. We still had to at least try boss rush. So I crafted the Draiden's Forge, made some Shadow Spec bars, and then went to craft the best ranged weapon in the we need Plague Soul canisters. Not to worry though, because one goated commenter told me I can get them from fishing crates. I farmed just enough to summon in the Plaguebringer, who also drops Plague Soul canisters too. And now we can finally make the Contagion. Then I make the Soma Prime, the final upgrade to the Kingsbane. I farm some more Exo Prisms, then some Ashes of Annihilation. It was pretty easy. I make a full set of Demon Shade armor. Then to top everything all off, the icing on the cake, I make the Endogenesis. And now we're finally ready to try the boss rush. Slight issue though, I cannot see Jack. Like seriously, it is so stupidly dark and I'm so floaty, it's hard to dodge anything. Okay, I guess I'll give it 2 more goes then. Just like in the first episode, Skeletron skulls are still stupidly slow. That's a tongue twister. Why am I not in the water? I did not consent to this. Is the playthrough over? Okay, I'm trying this one more time. If I die, the video's over. Oh yeah, boy, I'm pulling these skill moves on the cow clone. Oh yeah. Oh look at me go. Thank you all so much for watching this series, and an even bigger thank you to Bad Ash and McMantis, our channel members. It's been a ton of fun to make this, and I'll be working on a new series pretty soon. As always, the link to my Discord is in the description, the music I've used is in the description, and the mods I use are in the description too. Have a great day, and don't forget to make a cup of tea. See ya.